in 1998. It was still Danielson Soaring Association. A lot of changes since then. Changes is a small word in that sentence. It really should be capitalized. Yeah, this club has really done some amazing things. So anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. We've got a busy agenda today. As always, this is our big annual spring meeting where we cover a lot of information. So the most important part of that is our safety brief, and we have Daryl here today to go over that information. Very important. We all pay strict attention to this and take it all in. So it's a mandatory bit of information for club members. So it helps us get rolling for the spring and keep these thoughts with you through the entire season. So without further ado, we'll bring on Daryl Smith to present our safety brief.
Okay.
Oh, you're done.
Oh yeah, I see there's some new people that we've got here too. So I'm Daryl Smith. I hang out at airports. Average pilot. I did some towing. I do some instructing. So I'm going to just give you a briefing on safety, and it's something that we all do in different clubs in aviation. Have an annual safety meeting. So I figured I'd start off with how it all began. This is like 1902, was that? 1902? 3. Yeah. 2. 1902?
Well,
okay.
It's good.
Well, there were two.
Engine.
There were two. See, this one's got a single tail and this one's got a double tail. That's the newer one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the -1.
That's the -1.
There you go.
So this is how soaring all started. Okay. So, and shortly after it started, we started having things like this happen, right? So accidents. And it was the Wright brothers that started here in America. I don't want to get into discussion who was first, who was second, but early on, the Wright brothers came up with this saying and said that in flying, I've learned that carelessness and overconfidence are usually far more dangerous than the accepted risks of flying. Okay. Gliders just don't fly along and go, oh, look at that car. I'm going to go down and smash into it. You know, it's something that has to do with the pilot or something that the pilot had control over. So here's the agenda, what we're going to talk about today. And, you know, the agenda is not in order, so I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint slides. But, you know, we're going to touch on a lot of different things here. I don't think this is going to take more than 2 or 3 hours to get through. If that's all right with everybody. Hope the batteries last on that. No, it won't be that long. It really won't be. So why are we here? We're here because of things like this happen, right? Nobody wants this to happen at all. You know, we're here to talk about safety, so I thought I'd show you some of the end results when people don't think about safety. So we have an interest in safety because we want to make sure that we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to get hurt. Our fellow club members. We don't want to hurt another club member in the club here either. We want to make sure we take care of our aircraft. We don't want to be the one who goes, oh, sorry, I'm the one that smashed up the 126 today, and we don't have it for the next 4 years. Sorry. It's also the safety of our club's reputation, too. So we're part of a little airport community at Danielson and some of the other airports that we might go and fly gliders at. So it's our club reputation that's on the line as well. General aviation. We're a member of that general aviation crowd as well. And anything that we do is going to hurt the reputation of general aviation if we have an accident, right? It's also our sports reputation. So the SSA, AOPA, EAA, BFA, all those different aviation associations, they all spend a lot of money on the safety of their sport and promoting their sport. And we don't want to be somebody that kind of gets in the way and causes an accident or an incident and tarnishes our reputation. We walk out the door, our families want us to be safe too. They want us to come back. So a lot of the things we're going to do and talk about in this presentation are important. You're going to hear them every single year at this safety meeting. People have been to my safety briefings before. You're going to see some familiar slides, but I did change things up a little bit. We're going to talk about what causes accidents and incidents. How about the pilot? I think that's a big cause of incidents and accidents. How about some of the pilots that have been out there for a while? Risks. Are we thinking about the risk when we start to do something? Anyone heard of ADM, aeronautical decision making? How many students in the room? All right, I got to see a lot of pilots put their hands up. Everybody should put their hand up. We're all students, right? Well, anyway, if you're really a student pilot and you're learning to become an aviator, aeronautical decision making is something that is required that you get training on to qualify for a pilot certificate. So, pilot attitudes. Anybody heard the 5 most hazardous pilot attitudes ever? Okay. How many people have at least one of those attitudes? Tasha's got her hand. Yeah, we all have one of these attitudes. So, if you go to any of the FAA manuals about risk factors and aeronautical decision making, you'll find a section there about the 5 most hazardous attitudes of pilots. And if we know about these attitudes, we can recognize them ourselves. Or if I'm a ground crew person, I see, Fred's out there and he's exhibiting one of these 5 attitudes, I can walk over and say, hey, Fred, you're being a little bit too overconfident and too cocky. You're kind of showing off a little bit. You need to kind of tone it down a little bit. And don't take it offensively, but take it as a compliment. Hey, Daryl's just trying to make me, a safer pilot. We're just trying to make all of us safer. Here's one of them, invulnerability. Anybody have an example about invulnerability, what that would be?
It'll never happen to me.
Exactly, right? I'm too good a pilot. It's not going to happen to me. It happens to the other guy. I'm pretty smart. I know what I'm doing. Anti-authority. Anybody have any of these traits at all in aviation? Rules are for someone else. They're not for me. Okay? I don't have to follow rules. Resignation. Has anybody ever seen resignation? How many flight instructors are in here? Okay. You did most of power instruction, I'm assuming? All power. Yeah, power. Do you ever see anyone come up with a resignation at all about when you were an instructor?
Yeah, you'll take an airplane from a student, especially on landing, you try to correct them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of
Just
freeze?
let it go, yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know what to do. I give up. Okay. Impulsive. Anybody have an idea what impulsive means? Or anything? Got nothing.
Just do something.
React before you think about it.
Right. I never thought about what would happen in this situation. I'm just going to turn and head back to the airport after the rope breaks. Well, why would you turn and head back to the airport if you're only 10 feet off the ground? You got 3,000 feet of runway left. That's just being impulsive. You didn't think it through. You didn't have a plan. I'll skip over macho. No one's got that right. How many people here have macho attitudes? Oh, people with their hands down. You may not be able to be a pilot. I think that's part of the flight review. So, yeah, a macho attitude would be, watch me do this, okay? I can do that better. Has anyone ever seen any macho attitudes happen at the airport? Tasha, what was the macho attitude?
I will not say.
You will not say? Okay. Well, this is about safety, and we should all be willing to just say, okay, if I did something wrong, and if anyone sees me do something wrong, I'd appreciate you coming up and telling me. But there was a time, I don't think it was last year, I think it was the year before last, we saw a lot of people having a little contest, okay? How close could they land to the edge of the runway? Anybody remember that contest? Okay. People would come in, sometimes a flat glide angle, and they were trying to get, if this was the edge of the runway and the runway was this way, they were trying to land like right there. Anybody see what happened to one of those pilots? Pasha did, yeah. We broke an airplane that day, or a glider rather, so we had to put it away. It was down for, I don't remember, maybe a couple of months until it got repaired. But people were being macho, they were showing off, they're having a little contest. We don't have to talk about who it was. It's just a situation that happened and it needed to be stopped and just find a place to land, but don't land so close that you land in the grass, hit the edge of the runway, break the aircraft, and have to tow it off the runway. All pilots and ops people must be fully aware of these attitudes and be able to avoid them, as they have strong negative impact on decision-making and judgment. Wouldn't you say? If we could get rid of these attitudes, don't you think we could probably reduce a lot of accidents? Aeronautical decision-making. How many people have heard the PAVE model? Tasha? Yeah. You've heard about it.
No, I know.
You know about it? How many people? Anybody else? Okay. You're a flight, I don't want to keep picking on you, but
No,
you're an
that's
airplane
okay.
flight instructor.
I've been at it for a while, but no, I don't know the.
Okay, so this is a good review for you too. Okay. So PAVE stands for, it's an acronym. So we take the P and we assign something to the P, the A, the B, and so on. So I'm going to kind of run through that. So when we make decisions, we should say to ourselves, okay, pilot is a risk factor here. Did I do my checklist? Do I have any hazardous attitudes that I need to be aware of? You just run a self-assessment of yourself. Do I have personal limits? We all should be flying with personal limits. Now, is it too windy for me today? Is it too much of a crosswind? How much crosswind experience do I have? Maybe I shouldn't go today. What's my health like? It's allergy season right now. I've never had any problems with allergies, but I might be on the verge of starting to have them. It's been a couple of days I woke up and I was like, man, I got like minor dull headache and I just feel like I'm in a fog a little bit too. So, or maybe I didn't get a good night's sleep. I was so excited about coming down and doing my flying today at the airport. I didn't get a good night's sleep. So maybe I shouldn't fly by myself. Maybe I should take a flight instructor. Or another pilot that I trust their judgment. Maybe I'll have them go with me. Okay? A is for aircraft. Did I do a pre-flight? How about the performance of the aircraft? Is the performance level of this aircraft going to be good enough for what I plan to do today? I'm planning to take off from Danielson. I'm going to go up to Franconia Notch. Then I'm going to head down by Springfield, Vermont, and then I'm going to come back here. Am I going to do that in a 233? Probably not. I do it in a 126? Maybe, but not likely. How about the 134? Some people are shaking their heads. I don't know. I've never flown a 134, but that probably is. Lee, have you ever flown the 134 at all?
I've flown one. Not sure I would do that.
Yeah.
Maybe on a really good day, with cloud streets.
Lee's done some of those kind of flights I just described. He's got the aircraft for it. So he might say, yeah, I think I got the aircraft to do that. How about inoperative equipment? Lee might say, well, I got the aircraft to do it, but my Vario's not working. So that automatically puts me behind the eight ball. Maybe I shouldn't do it because I now have a risk element involved here with my aircraft that I may not be able to do that flight. How about any damage to the aircraft or things missing too? Right, so we need to take in all these different assessments and see if it passes the risk test that we want to do. V is for environment. Okay, do I have the weather to do the flight that I was just talking about? How about the ground crew, right? A lot of people think, yeah, we're going to launch this glider and it's going to go on this epic flight. Do I have someone to come get me if I don't make it all the way? That might be another thing you want to think about. The terrain. Are we doing it around New England? Are we flying down Florida? Are we flying out in Estrella where John's done a lot of flying? You know, the different environments might mean different things for the kind of flight we're going to do today. What's traffic pattern? Might be something that would be an environmental thing. Anybody think of other environmental things that we should maybe assess before we went on a flight?
Thinking area like the skydivers or other things happening.
Skydivers, that's perfect. Are the skydivers flying today or not? If they are, okay, that's an environmental thing. It's another risk out there that I got to make sure that I try and take into account before I go on this flight. The equipment, the tow rope, right? The tow plane. Is the tow plane really something we want to take into assessment as a risk element here? Who's flying the tow plane? Okay. Is it his first flight ever as a tow pilot? We may want to say, yeah, I think maybe I'll sit this one out and let someone else go ahead and make. The equipment might also be the tow pilot briefing. You're required to have a briefing with the tow pilot. The tow pilot is required to have a briefing with you. You guys are supposed to be in sync. And we had some standard tow pilot briefings that we're going to talk about some of them today. And if the tow pilot flies the way we think he's going to fly and the way he's going to be doing some of the different club towing operations, okay, we've kind of had our briefing. Yeah, we had it today. It doesn't necessarily we have it every single time before we take off. But I'll tell you, if there's an accident, the FAA is probably going to ask, did you have a briefing with your tow pilot today? No, I had it 3 months ago. That might be a risk right there. This makes sense to everybody? Okay. How many people do it all the time on every flight? They run down the page checklist. It's not just for the flight for takeoff. I might be doing it for, okay, I'm an instructor, so I'm going to go up and I'm going to do some instructing with a student. I'll run through this, you know, the pilot. Do I have the experience? Do I know how to do that maneuver? Is the environment the right thing to do? I've got the aircraft, I've got the weather. Okay, I'll do it. When I come in for a landing, I'm going to run through this. Okay, I've got my checklist done. The aircraft is all set. I know the environment. My equipment's ready for the landing. Just run that paved model checklist for everything you do. One of the places I had breakfast and saw this, I'm like, man, this would fit a safety meeting perfectly, wouldn't it? Drink coffee, do stupid things faster with more energy. That's kind of impulsive, isn't it? I didn't do this last year. I did it the year before, and we had sort of like a scorecard. And I didn't do enough research for this safety meeting today to have an updated scorecard. So I thought, well, this is one of the scorecards we had from a past meeting, 2017. And it covers the term 2004 to 2016. And we did have some problems during this period. I don't think we had any problems last year. Fred, Kasha, you guys were there most of the time. Anything to add or take away? Well, I'm sure we started off with a fresh scorecard, but anything that should have been up on the scorecard?
One incident with the golf cart.
What happened with the golf cart, do you remember?
Somebody just threw it, but
Someone fell out?
No, landing on the grass
yeah.
Oh,
That's-
with the golf cart in the way.
Oh, runway and
Yeah.
the grass.
yeah, okay. We're going to talk about that. So when we get to that point, make sure we can relive part of it. We don't need names, we just need the situation so we can all learn from it. That's all.
I think in the last 2 years, I think.
Okay. So we got a pretty good record. We had some damage to our aircraft here, and we had some damage to airport property, mostly the runway and taxiway lights. That was a period I'm sure everybody wants to forget. It all kind of happened quickly, and it was all over. And there's at least 2 people here in this room, 3 people that have repaired gliders from this kind of damage. Don't need to, dwell on it, but we're here for a safety meeting. Here's some of the accidents that may have happened. Anybody want to take a guess what may have happened to this? I have no idea. Talking a lot about ground things. What about things in the air? What might have happened in the air for this to happen? loss of airspeed, loss of control. Okay.
Rope break.
There's been a rope break, right? If there was a rope break, it probably was loss of airspeed control, loss of aircraft control, and that's what ended up here. The other thing, the other risk factor was, what am I going to do if the rope does break? I don't have a plan. So I'm kind of just flying blind here. Like, oh my God, the rope break. What am I going to do? I don't know. Maybe resignation, stop flying. Bam, this is what happened. So let's talk a little bit about ground operations.
Can I interject on that last?
Sure.
I've minimized the picture, but anyway, back to the picture of the glider nose down in the woods. This is possibly what happens when you have to land on top of the trees. And I have a positive that this is a possible solution to our difficulty in finding a rope break below 200 feet action, landing on top of the trees, particularly off runway 13. I will say that if the pilot or pilots are wearing their seat belt, it could be a severe jar, but I don't think it's fatal. I still think landing on top of the trees is, don't stall and don't stall. Fly onto the trees. If it so happens that you end up going 50 feet or 60 feet down and ending up like this, yeah, it looks bad, but you've survived. I'll back out again on the mute.
Yeah, thanks, David. I actually forgot you were there. Who's on the video call with you, David? Are there others out there?
David, Mark, and Rob.
David?
David, Mark, and Rob.
Rob McGuire,
Yeah.
David McKenzie, and
Okay.
Mark. Who?
Someone.
Oh, okay. Okay, guys, sorry, I didn't see you in the room. I didn't acknowledge you, but if you're having any trouble seeing the slides or hearing me, just let me know, and I'll move closer to the microphone if I need to. Yeah, David brings up a good point. I think we can role play some of these different situations later on. I just want to get through the safety presentation, but if David, Mark, Rob, any comments at all, just blurt them out, and we'll talk about them a little bit. So let's talk about ground operations, and this is Danielson Airport. I'll just help orientate you. Here's a river over here. This is on the western side of the field. The airport, 3-1 and 1-3. This is the FBO building here. This is kind of where we meet. This is where the restroom is and so on. And over on this side is where we set up, I would say probably 90% of the time, right in this area. This is a picture that was taken before all these trees were cut down. So I should update this slide here. All these trees have been taken out. But what I did is I overlaid some things on, and this is what I wanted to also say when we start talking about operations. We can manage ourselves as a club, or the state or somebody else is going to take over and manage us because we didn't manage ourselves and things got out of hand and we start having accidents and incidents and not being good neighbors on the airport. So think of this as, okay, let's try and be safe as we can, and let's have some standardized club operations. Let's talk about runway incursions. Anyone know what a runway incursion is? Got a couple right here. We got a vehicle driving across the runway when a plane's landing. This could very easily be the golf cart, right? Here we've got an airplane landing and another one on the airport. This could be very easily the glider coming out and getting set up. Hey, Joe. So we might be pulling in front of an aircraft. Okay. Runway, golf cart, people. Some of these put their people, airport too. We have a lot of people the FBO, and somebody microphone off. So people need. Okay. Don't walk or this happened. I was driving the grass going from back up to the golf cart. Not watching. Sure enough, someone on short line on an airplane, and we had to stop and hit reverse and get out of the way. I've also seen people just walking, 2 or 3 people abreast, talking, just going from the operations areas out to the FBO. They're not looking, and a glider can sneak up on you pretty fast. Doesn't happen in. And I'll tell you, airplanes can sneak up on you pretty fast too if you're not paying. So if you're out on that airport area and you're in that airport operation area, you better be paying attention. Okay? Anybody else have any stories like mine? When they got caught by surprise? Joe?
Yeah. Especially the gliders.
Yeah. So let's talk about some ground operations. Here's the airport. The FBO hangar we usually set up over here. Talk about this area right at the end of 3-1. So I put a couple of things up here. Usually this is where the people with the private craft set their gliders up. They park their cars or trailers in this area. Here's an aircraft tie down. This is where we park our club gliders. We tie them down there. And we usually set up our gliders right here on the flight line. This area that's in yellow, we want to try and keep this area clear right here. And if you're walking through this yellow area or you're driving the golf cart, you want to keep good situational awareness of, okay, let's check the traffic pattern before I cross. Right? Let's make sure we have a club radio if we've got one, or a personal radio. If we're in the golf cart, that might be a good idea too. This is the pinch point right here. This is where someone's going to get hurt if we traverse this area without knowing what's going on. Okay. This area here where the private gliders are parked, I've heard, because I'm at the airport a lot, I hear a lot of people from the airplane community. They like to do their run-ups up in this area here, and then they taxi down and go out on the runway. This yellow line that's here, they kind of look at it as a safety line. If I keep my nose wheel on that line, I'm probably not going to hit anybody that's parked in the grass. So kind of asking, keep this area along the edge of the runway and into the grass a little bit clear if we can, only because the airplane guys complain about it. And we just want to be good neighbors if we can. Stay away from that little buffer zone area. Here's a slide. You can see that this whole area here is in blue. And remember to keep a good smile on, because anything that happens in this area is on camera with the DOT in Connecticut. And I've been here at the airport even midweek, and someone at the DOT station in Hartford will call up and say, hey, what's going on at the airport? We see somebody out there that looks like they're trying to get a parachute or something off the runway. And the one day I went out there, it wasn't on the runway, it was on the taxiway. Someone was out here with one of these paraglider parachutes and a big fan on their back, and they were running down the taxiway trying to get airborne. So DOT knew about it. Boy, we had a telephone call pretty quick.
If we could go back to that triangle there, where would you like us to put something?
I think in the same place, Lee. It's just that I just want everyone to be aware of this grass area here. Maybe try and stay back from it 10 feet or so, or something like that. Just because the airplane guys.
So should that car be pulled up beyond that?
Yeah, I would say, and this is not to scale or anything like that, but maybe, I know you guys like to set up on the asphalt, and that's good, but before you take off, maybe just move your trailer forward.
It's okay to assemble there.
Oh, yeah. Yep. It's just that I don't want the airplane guys to go, well, I hit that trailer because my nose wheel was on the center yellow line and I wasn't looking at my wing. So it's just being a good neighbor. Let's try and prevent an accident from happening. Let's try and keep somebody from hitting our trailer that may have left it there to go flying.
That was me there, but I was famous briefly on Google Earth.
Actually,
How many people can claim this on Google Earth?
that's why I like this slide, because I can see myself. That's my red Durango. That, Mark, that's you in your trailer, I think, right there. And this is when we had a muffler break on the Pawnee, and I'm probably taking the muffler out so we can get it welded or something. Or the exhaust pipes. So yeah, I know I'm right about there. And I think that is you, Lee. I think this is, Greg? No, Greg would be over here helping me. Anyway.
Yeah, but it could have been
Powered
his
airplane.
What's that?
I think that's a powered airplane there.
Right here?
Somebody flew in, yeah.
I think that's a light. Pretty sure.
That's Greg.
Might be.
It's a low aspect, then it's a 233.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, this picture's no longer up there now. Any questions on this, about the yellow area here, or on where all the cameras are? Joe?
Could you increase activity, especially minor activity on grass?
We're gonna talk.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Does that affect how we should be?
Yeah, I think it is. That's a good point. For the longest time, we weren't able to use this grass along the side of the runway. Here, let me find a better picture here. I've got another one coming up. But we need to be cognizant that people will be overflying this area and probably touching down in this area right here.
And not just gliders, because now other aircraft, tail draggers and so on, can also use that easily. So it's not just a matter of us knowing that all our gliders are on there.
Good point. I got a place that's coming up. Let's keep that discussion going when I get there. Staging, parking on runway 31. Okay, this would be,
This is 1-3.
I'm sorry, 1-3. So here we are. We're I see my slides. Darn it. There we go. There we go. So the Willamette River is over. Not the Willamette. Get the name of the river that's over here. And then the FBO would be way down over there. We're at the west end of the runway. We're going to be taking off to the east over out of Danielson. Okay. And this is how we usually set up, and I don't think we're going to be changing this much at all.
So we started moving further down, closer to the river, and pulling into the runway instead of
Okay, so we're setting up farther down here now. Okay, that's probably a good idea. So here's a picture of that right now. Just to orientate you a little bit, the FBO is way down at this end, and this is the area we need to keep clear at the end of the runway, and also along this area here, because our airplanes come down, everybody doesn't stay on the yellow line. Ask me how I know that one. And we just want to make sure there's a good buffer zone there. You know, I've parked my glider over in this area here before just to keep congestion down on the other side, that's all. But guess what? Still video coverage there. Actually, they put up another camera, and it's up in this area, actually right up in this area right here. And I went up here, and you can see right over the top of the building, you can still see down there. So they probably have better video coverage than they had a couple of years ago.
Where are they watching this? Is it in Groton, London, or
It's in Hartford. Actually, I think it's Newington, Connecticut is where the state DOT is. Did you know anything about that?
Yes, they're going to DOT.
Department of Transportation for Connecticut. They're watching. All right, everybody saw this in that. Golf cart safety, all right? Have we had any golf cart accidents at all? People falling off? getting their foot run over, something like that, okay? Horsing around on the golf carts, anybody? Haven't seen that. It was hard to find some golf cart accidents as they relate to aviation, but here's one. I don't know what this guy was thinking, that he could take his golf cart and sneak behind this airplane, but he definitely packed up this fiberglass aircraft right here. Golf cart safety, this is just some of the things that I took off. There is a National Golf Cart Safety Association. These are some best practices. I added a few in here. When you're towing a glider, always be looking in back of you at least 50% of the time. I can't tell you how many times I landed with a student. We get out, we look up to the golf cart. I'm talking to the student. I usually run the wing, let the student just walk because he's already nervous enough from flying with me. But the golf cart goes faster, faster, and faster, and you're yelling to whoever's driving the golf cart, and they never looking back at me. I was at another airport doing an exam, and I was watching the applicant interact with the people that were driving a pickup truck, towing the glider. The guy in the pickup truck was on the phone, and he just kept going faster and faster and faster. So fast that the person holding the wing and both of us screaming couldn't get the driver's attention. And that glider was going all over the place, unsecured, and the pickup truck driver is just keeping on going. He wasn't looking back. Now, we didn't damage the aircraft. We almost did. The way we almost damaged the aircraft was the tow rope wasn't long enough, and that wing, every once in a while, was coming up and almost hitting the back of the pickup truck, but it never did. But I tell you, it came awful, awful close. I know it's Sterling. They have two people in their golf carts. One of them's responsible for watching it back all the time. The other one's responsible for moving forward all the time. Lee, have you been to any places where they have any kind of rules like that with golf carts? Or have any experiences or stories to tell about golf cart towing accidents?
I don't have these stories and stuff, but I'd say it is an area of general carelessness. I don't even know anybody who talks about it.
Yeah. John, how about you?
You often see the rope and ring, being dragged on. You never know if it's going to wrap around or taxi it out or catch on something.
Yeah.
It's a surprise.
How about you, John? You've flown at some different places.
Well, I'm going to focus more on CSA, and we've certainly had our share of people that aren't that responsible in driving the golf cart. So I agree. I think this is an important thing to talk about. And you're pulling, when you're pulling something like Lee's glider, there's a lot of money at the end of that rope,
Yep.
and you got to think of it that way. It is pulling somebody's hard-earned money. Don't want to damage it or damage anything else around where you are or people.
Yeah. That's a good point. We can all think of it as club property when you're towing one of our club gliders. We're all owners of that glider. You want to see Daryl towing that glider, not looking in back of him, just racing down there as fast as that golf cart will go. You need to yell at Daryl and tell him to slow down. You need to get Daryl off the golf cart and put somebody else on. You need to.
The hardest part of this is when you go across on the taxiways, the ABC taxiway, downhill at that point. I've seen a couple of times where the glider is actually almost overrun.
Yeah.
Tugging, and if anything, you have to make sure the tug isn't going too slow.
Well, I think I've been in that situation before. I'm glad you brought it up. And every time I was in that situation where the glider is going to run into the back of the golf cart, because the golf cart driver isn't paying attention. They're just driving. And most of the time, they're talking to somebody. So that might be something to be, if you're having your glider towed by somebody and there's two people in the golf cart, that's probably a problem, because those two people are probably going to talk. They're not going to be paying attention to you. So watch out for that kind of situation.
I also had a situation when I was driving on a downslope, and I did not pay attention the glider wheel accelerated, so the glider wheel pick up the speed and almost hit me.
Yeah.
Driving on the pavement can be surprising because after towing gliders all day in the grass,
Yeah.
you do one on the pavement, there's no friction. You get going, you slow the cart down, but that glider doesn't slow down. It just keeps going because there's no friction.
So if you're the golf cart driver, you may have to keep going just a little bit to stay ahead of the golf cart.
The glider.
But also, I think when we tend to walk the range, we don't have anybody in front of the glider, so the glider starts to overrun the golf cart. There's actually no way of stopping it because we're not in the right position.
Am I on?
Yeah.
I might throw out experience I had a few years ago out in Indianapolis. They tow on asphalt. They don't have to worry about grass, but they tow backwards. So the driver is looking at the glider all the time, maintaining his position by the stripe on the runway. Sounds kind of, I don't think we could probably use it, but nonetheless, having two people in the car, I suppose, is the best. They depend on the people walking the glider to alert the driver if there's something downstream or, ahead of the golf cart. But he's watching the glider the whole time. I'm not recommending, I'm just making an observation. I'm going to try and click off now.
Yeah, Dave brings up a valid point. I've seen people towing aircraft, by the front of a tug or golf cart, and they're driving backwards. Same thing happens. They're not looking where they're going. They're looking at the aircraft they're towing. So there's again, the only thing I can say is you got to use good common sense, and you got to use your head. You got to be aware of what's going on. And if you find yourself not paying attention for a second, you better wake yourself up pretty fast and start paying attention.
Yeah, I think your point about Sterling using two people is good, and if we have the people on the field to do that, we should use that, but make sure that second person is either turned facing the glider or riding in the back of the cart.
Yep. So remember I said we either police ourselves or someone's going to do it for us. Sterling is a private airport. Now, I don't know this for sure. I'm only surmising that something probably happened. The owner of Sterling Airport said, hey, if you're going to tow gliders with a golf cart, you need to have two people. One to drive, pay attention to driving, the other one to pay attention to the glider and back. So that might be a situation where the airport people put this rule in effect for the glider operation. So I don't really know for sure, but it's kind of like, hey, take care of ourselves or someone's going to take care of it for us.
We also put a $100 rear view.
Yeah.
We tried
We had
that.
one with that.
We
It
had
didn't
one
work well.
Yeah. It
No.
vibrated too much, right?
Yeah, well, it's shaking a lot. It's a very narrow field of view.
Yeah, I bought one a couple years ago
It's
for
like one of
the
those NASCAR mirrors.
the
that
greeny
work.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was.
Did it work?
It was okay. I mean, I don't think it was hard to use. And it was, like Fred says, narrow and also a lot of vibration.
Well, the big problem was the thing
Maybe.
you need to see is
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
the thing you need to see is not behind you; it's behind and to the left. It's the people walking the wing you have to look at, because they're the ones that are going to say, "Hey, you're going too fast."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be worth a try. But the vibration thing was another issue as well. So
I remember that in the grass. It was like, yeah.
even at
Well,
slow
it wasn't
speed.
a really stiff mount either. It was
Yeah.
vibration in the mount of the glider and golf carts.
I mean,
Well,
when-
on the roof, yeah.
Yeah, I think you find those more when you're on
Yeah. But we mounted it on the dashboard once too. We took the roof off and we mounted that mirror on along the dash, and people were sitting in the middle of it. We were sitting in the golf cart, but we were still seeing that. But the vibration was like, if you're looking at a picture and it's got all this motion in it, you're not going to focus on it. Or we could all, 50% of the time looking back of us, and the other 50% you just keep doing this, okay? And when you get tired of doing that, you do this.
Actually, you don't need to look in front that much. The scene in
that's
front
right.
doesn't change very much.
Yeah, yeah. What changes fast is what's in back of you.
Yeah.
When I drive the golf cart, I tend to sit sideways on the seat. But I'm always turned so I can hear
That's a good idea.
a lot easier.
Yeah. Dragging the tow rope, that's right. I've seen the tow rope go around the landing light and it's flipped right back off of it. But I know a lot of us just unclip the tow rope and whoever's driving the cart takes off. I know up at Springfield, I know up at Sterling, I know up at Franconia Notch, they all secure that tow rope before they go anywhere.
And now I'm reminded of a situation at CSA we had once, and that was somebody was staging a glider in preparation to get it on the runway. They hooked up the rope to the golf cart and left it. And then someone wanted to use the golf cart and forgot to unhitch the
I
glider.
should have that up there.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep.
That was a close call to disaster.
So what happens is, we have a golf cart, we got the glider, getting ready to pull out. Oh, there's some in the traffic pattern. We're already hooked up golf cart to the glider. We have to wait for about 5 minutes. Okay. Golf cart operator gets off, we all sit around and talk. And someone says, hey, can you go get so-and-so over at the FBO? They went over there to use the restroom, we need them back. And they go, yeah, I'll go get him. They hop on the golf cart, hit the gas, and guess what? We're still connected to the glider, and holding on to it. We're all sitting around talking, having a good time like we should be out there. And the golf cart tows the glider, and it usually goes out of control immediately. So if you're in that situation, and the golf cart's been hooked up to the glider already, who's responsible? Pilot command. You get ready to hook up, you're getting ready to tow out there, you are now responsible for that airplane. So as a flight instructor, I'm telling that student, you're responsible. I'm going to stay here and watch you. But there's been a lot of times that we've had to unclip the rope. And I tell them is undo it, but hold it in your hand. You have to do this as soon as we're ready to go again. Now you just hook it up again, we're ready to tow.
Yeah, I don't want to digress too far, but the problem with that is we have ground people, ambitious ground people, that are willing to get everything ready for the next guy before that pilot in command has an opportunity to even see what's going on. And that may have been the case in that close call.
Well, then I have to say it was a ground crew person.
Yeah.
They did it without the PIC being ready.
But you bring up, that's a really good point. Maybe that shouldn't be connected until the pilot in command says to connect. Now that's a step that CSA should consider.
Yep. Absolutely. So something that we just found that we probably should put into the ops manual, something like that. Anybody else got any comments on that? Okay. Watch for trash blowing out of the golf cart. Yeah. Visitors on the airport.
May I interrupt about the radio thing? The last year, the golf cart on the grass while the glider was approaching. Before that happened, we were trying to call the attention of the people driving the golf cart, but there were no radio there.
I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure you bring that up again.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get to that. That's an important part I want to talk about. How many people have seen guests out here? This is my opinion right here. I made this statement up. If you bring a visitor, your spouse, child, friend, neighbor, dog to the airport, they're your responsibility for the whole day, whether you're flying or not. Okay? You need to help manage your guests out there. We want them out there, but we don't want them doing this. This woman is leaning against one of the airport signs. This guy here, he started off there, but he was now standing at the end of the runway here. I didn't get a picture. I don't know what this gentleman was doing out there, but we got to manage ourselves, or someone at DOT's going to see this, or the jumpers, or another pilot are going to complain about people on or near the runway. And I know that in a glider operation, we're like, hey, man, this happens all the time. You know, if you go to a private airport, this may be kind of normal procedure, but at a state airport, the way some of these people fly, you don't want to be too close to them.
What happens to the big sign we used to have those on the
I have no idea.
red and white that said don't catch this one?
It's in the shed.
I think that was helpful. Stop at the sign.
Yep.
Well, we're all members. We all need to help manage situations like this, okay? All it would take is one person who was over here where all the gliders were and watching the situation unfold. All it would take is someone coming over and say, hey, can I help you? If you're here to watch, great. But you need to stand back, or you need to come with me and go on the other side and watch over there. So don't be afraid to get involved. Glider pre-flight. Anybody want to keep this one up about the glider pre-flight? Who doesn't do a pre-flight? I know I've seen some people. I even heard one time it's the people who tow the glider over from the tie down to the other side. It's their responsibility to do the pre-flight. I've heard that. Okay, I've heard that as not last year but the year before. Okay. I also heard it's the tow pilot's responsibility to get the weather briefing. How many people heard that? Whose responsibility is to get the weather briefing if you're going to be the PIC of an aircraft?
Yeah, I see it.
PIC, right. I'm on something more exciting, tow ropes. Whose responsibility is to pre-flight the tow rope?
Yeah, I see.
And?
The tow pilot.
The tow pilot, yeah. There's split responsibility of the tow pilot and the glider pilot. I go out and look at the tow rope every once in a while. I'm sort of the tow rope wrangler in the club, I guess. I'm trying to do something else to be it. I want to get away from it. But, you know, many times I'll go out and inspect the tow rope and I'll go, oh, it's starting to pull out. Let's take this one out of service, put the other one back in service. So these tow ropes don't last the entire season. They sometimes don't last the entire day. It's a vital link between you and safety. You take off behind that tow pilot. Tow pilot's not likely to do it all the time because he's in the tow plane, he's making multiple pulls, he's relying on someone else to be checking it too. But if you're a tow pilot and you're not seeing anybody check the tow rope, and they want to just call up on the radio and say, hey, I haven't seen anyone check the tow rope in 5 tows. Why should someone check it?
Primarily, we're looking for the telltales and no knots, not so much the broken strands.
Not so much.
Yeah, how much deterioration do you see before you take a rope out of service?
That's a great question, and there is no data to support anything. But, you know, it's subjective of what you think, Fred, what I think, what everybody else thinks. We've been taking them out, we've been throwing them away once a year and making new ones. That seemed to work pretty good. I think other clubs do the same thing too. Depends on how many toes we put on. What are we doing for frequency of toes, Tosh? Do you know what we did last year? Like 5 a day, 10 a day, average?
I think it's
Daryl, are you asking how many toes we do?
Yeah, on the average a day.
Well, when it was nice out, we were getting 20 plus in, and 10's about right now.
Okay. Yeah. Moving on.
12.
There are clubs that, Tucson, for instance, 60 toes on a
Okay.
rope, and that was, 60 toes on a rope, done.
Throw it away. Okay. Well, you're also in a pretty porous environment
Right.
out there, with sand, crushed rock kind of.
And they were flying with cotton, yeah.
Okay.
Not,
And when that dust and debris gets inside the rope, it just starts working itself. It destroys itself from the inside out. We're mostly towing, we're towing on asphalt, but as soon as that rope goes taut, we're really not putting a lot of drag on the asphalt. We're dropping it in the grass. So we're minimizing what we could do with that rope. I think replacing it every year is still pretty good safety. routine, right?
The purpose of the tow log at one point was to try and determine how many tows per rope there would be, but I don't think that was ever really
Yeah, I'm
the
still
data collected on that.
label them A, B, and sometimes C when I got a third one, just so we could, okay, we used A Saturday, let's use B on Sunday. Like, trying to break it up.
Can I interject?
Sure.
They talk about one of the things that can go wrong with a tow rope. One of the things that they meaning historically, to talk about knots. They say a simple knot in the rope reduces its strength by 50%. I don't know about that, but how are we checking for knots? Now, normally, the guy who hooks up the rope to the glider shows the pilot 3 feet or so of the end of the rope. That's as much as the pilot can generally see. Who is checking the rope, the lion's share of the rope? Nobody particularly is doing that. The only chance we have to do that is when we retrieve it from the grass where it's been dropped, as we pull it out, getting it ready for the next tow. So I think the person who is moving it, somebody has to be responsible, or somebody has to take that responsibility to eyeball the entire length of the rope each time. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's not onerous duty, and the knot should show up, but it could happen that nobody has really looked at the major length of the rope for knots. And I don't know who we can saddle with that duty. It's a club-wide responsibility that the rope be.
Some people want to interject here. Joe, I'll go with you first.
Yeah, I think I practice, co-pilots are having their first flight. Okay. In addition, I think the rope is retrieved. The person who usually has blocked it down to that, to the appropriate landing line, then sort of holds it back and forth along the length of the rope. So it gets a pretty good looking at.
Yep.
About most of its length. I say absolutely, I know for certain that there are no knots in any rope on it. Okay? But I would say it's not also just left up to random chance.
Yeah. Gotcha, you had something? Yeah. Lee?
As a pilot, I'm looking for knots as the, I saw anything that looked like a knot, I'd see it. But I think, as a pilot, you can pretty much sit down and.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I do too. Joe, you had something else?
I just, a thought, if whoever retrieves the rope was gonna be the person that hooked it to the glider, that would give them a chance, they could just grab the rope and walk back the length of it to the other end, so that it runs through their hand, and if there's any knots or anything, find it.
Yeah.
But that means somebody else is gonna have to walk up to hook up on it.
Which is usually what happens.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of times it does. Usually if I retrieve the rope, I tend to be back to the hookup point.
yeah, usually the rope is fetched and laid out
Yeah.
long before launch. So there's a new crew out.
So that might be
I think there are a lot of people who are looking at the rope every flight. I think David's point was nobody is responsible.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think
yes,
that's the case.
Somebody is responsible.
Well, the PIC.
It's a CFR or FAR.
Mhm.
Pilot and the co-pilot and the glider pilot are responsible. So if there's going to be a problem, someone has to do an investigation. Those are two people that are going to be on this. But I think it's good that we all do it.
Right.
But I do know that a lot of times it's the younger, more energetic people, less experienced people that are going out and grabbing that rope and bringing it back. We just need to make sure that we spend some time with them and show them, especially if we find some defects or abnormalities, and point these out to the team and so they know better what to do. Or, better yet, I think Fred, you and I talked about, take pictures of these bad things that we should be conveying to everybody. Get it documented in a picture, because we're usually running pretty fast and furious sometimes, but snap a picture of it. Okay.
And I think even as a wing runner or laying out the rope, if I find like the loose strand thing you mentioned, a couple little loose strands, I'm like, well, I would fly that, but I'm going to show it to the PIC. So I, as the guy hooking up the glider, I'll still say, oh, did you see this? Just to make sure he sees something that maybe he couldn't see from when the rope was getting pulled tight.
Also, you want to make sure you got the right kind of ring on for the glider you're flying, right? How many times have I held up the wrong ring to somebody and they went, yep, okay. Well, now this is the wrong ring. You're looking at it, you're shaking your head. This has all been muscle memory almost. It's like, is this okay? Yes, it's okay. It's not. You're going to look at something and okay it. You better take a little bit of time to slow down and look at it and say, yeah, that's the right one. Don't be rushed into a decision because you're on the runway or asking them how to go. And like, Pete does, and I know some of us more experienced pilots, yeah, we're watching that because we're kind of looking for knots and things like that. But a new, freshly minted solo or student private pilot, they got a lot going on. They haven't yet been able to widen their vision out to start picking up some of these other little things that more experienced pilots do, like checking the rope for knots. Anything else on tow ropes?
Well, the other thing that I think that you pointed out, Daryl, more than once, but I don't think it has been mentioned yet, is the two little, you talked about the rope being pulled out or something. The two little humps that appear outside the rope to show that I don't know, do you know where I'm going, Daryl? You can probably explain it better than I.
And basically it's a hollow rope, and we go around the ring and we take the rope and we go down into the center of the rope, and it goes in 3-4 feet. And every foot or so we pop out and go back in again, and that's like a little telltale. It tells us how far down the rope, how far is this rope pulled apart. So if we have two telltales, we know we're still good. If we look at it, we see only one telltale, we see a bigger loop around the ring, we know this thing is starting to come apart. And we used a hollow core, I'll call it water ski rope, because some people know it better as that. I know that some of the other glider places, what do they use in sprinklers? More of a cotton rope, is that right? You know? They have a way of doing a rope splice.
It's similar rope.
Yep.
The cotton you can actually just knot, but there's a special knot.
Special knot.
Yeah.
So, we probably need to do a whole class on tow ropes. But the other thing is winding it up. How many people have seen us wind up ropes like this on our arm? And then you just let it go. What happens? Well, it's a place for knots to happen. So we have this wind up reel. Use the reel if you're going to wind it up. If you need to move the rope, you can double it up or double it up a second time and then move it that way. That went up pretty good. Here's some examples. Here are the two different kinds of rings. We've got the Schweitzer ring, which is like a 2.5-inch diameter ring. We've got the toast, however you want to say it. We've got two different size rings on that. I got this off the internet. This was some kind of link they had on one of the tow ropes in Europe, I think. I don't know what it is. Staging on the runway. So there's a lot of people that say, hurry up, we want to get more toes in today. Or hurry up and get on, there's someone in the downwind leg of the pattern, so hurry up, get in the glider, we're going to tow you off right away. These ground crew people can be very pushy sometimes. And you as the pilot in command, your responsibility. If anything happens now, you got this glider on the runway, it's your responsibility. Anything's going to happen, it's going to be your fault. Okay? So do as many things as you can before you get out there. run through the pre-flight or the takeoff checklist if you can. Make sure you got your radio and your maps, parachutes, anything you're going to have with you, all set in place. Get your seat belts fastened and set the right way. If you got a passenger with you, do the same thing for that passenger. Give them their passenger briefing about how to get in and out of the glider and undo the seat belts. All that while you're in the grass before you move out. Okay. You become the PIC as soon as the glider starts to move toward the runway for the purpose of flight. You are now the PIC, okay? Even though somebody told you, all right, get on the wing, I'm hooking you up and I'm towing you out there, if you let the ground crew run you, that's wrong. You should be running the ground crew. A lot of times the ground crew will do this, and that's fine if you're okay with it, but make sure you're managing them. We're planning to launch in about 2 to 3 minutes because we launch from the active runway. Your before checklist is done after you are on the runway and in the glider. Listen, I preach this. Get in the glider, get your passenger in, get your seatbelt done. Now do your before takeoff checklist. Okay? While everything is ready for flight. Take your time, but be thorough. Even if someone's saying, hurry up, are you ready? Hurry up, are you ready? You're the PIC. Don't let those guys run you. You got to make sure that this aircraft is ready to go and you haven't forgotten. Okay? Who's watching the traffic pattern? I've seen this more often than not. Everybody is just so focused on helping this guy in the glider and the passenger, and giving briefings and taking pictures, and no one's watching the traffic pattern. Okay. Not all the aircraft come in are telling you, I'm entering downwind, I'm on downwind, I'm on base, I'm on final. You should have somebody out there watching the traffic. And it's not uncommon to see someone like me say to someone, hey, Mark, watch the traffic pattern for me. And I'll just make sure that he's not watching me, that he's watching somewhere else in the traffic pattern. If you feel rushed, you're not prepared, or it just doesn't feel right, there's no shame in pulling the release and saying, get me off the runway. I'm not ready. I don't want to hold anybody else up. Okay? Don't feel bad like, well, I didn't want to do it because the tow plane was in place and the rope was already hooked up, so I decided to go anyway. They can't be fooled. I didn't have time to do my checklist. All right? Sorry, if you're not ready to go, get off the runway. How many people have seen me do that? Okay. There's no shame in doing it. It shows a little more professionalism that, okay, I'm not ready. I don't want to hold everybody else up. Let's get off the runway. Whatever the problem is, I'll solve it off the runway. Tow operations. When you're hooking a glider up, know that as soon as that rope gets connected, there's this danger zone in front of the wings. Okay? There's been a lot of stories. Actually, it could even doesn't have to be the tow plane. It could be the golf cart. Okay? That any sudden movement of that airplane could cause one wing to whip around faster than the other. Could mean that both wings go forward right away. So anyone who's standing right here could get hit in the back of the head, especially with those high wing Schweitzer kind of 233 gliders. Or you could get hit right below your knees and fall back over the top of the wing if it's a low wing glider. Okay? So again, if you're piloting command and that rope gets connected and you got 2 or 3 people here and someone's over here taking a picture, you know what you may want to do? Just pull the release. Because as soon as you pull the release, that red zone goes away. Get all your pictures done. When everyone's ready, hook the rope back up. Okay? Everyone familiar with the wing runner ground signals? Okay. Practice it in front of the mirror if you need to. One area right in here I want to talk about. And it comes right between, okay, closing, your rope is connected. Now you raise your thumb, meaning go ahead and raise the wing, right? I think there's something that should go right in here. It's worth a discussion about for a little while. And that is the tow plane doesn't move until the wing runner picks the wing up, okay? When the tow pilot sees the wing go up, now we're going to give the signal for takeoff to slack. A lot of times I've seen people hook up the glider, there's people in front of the wings. You see somebody out there, we're trying to get the tow rope to go taut. People are still getting ready. The tow plane is starting to pull the slack up. And if the tow pilot doesn't stop early enough, what happens? It jars the glider forward. That's where the accident's going to happen. I knew this would be a big discussion. And some of you are not raising your hand yet because you're like still cooking over what I'm saying probably. But Kasha, I think you were first.
Joel was first.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, you know, our practice has become that, once the pilot is doing his checklist, the wing will remain down and allow the wing runner and the person guiding the tow plane, the tow pilot, to take up the slack. And then that's as far as it goes. Thumbs up, then gets the
wing up.
wing off the ground, and then finally, rudder wag from the glider, and then confirmation from the tow plane with rudder wag, then gets circling arm. So we are guilty or have improved our efficiency, one or the other, purposefully by taking up slack before we raise the wing.
Yeah.
Now, I think as a club, if we want to do something different, then we need to change the practice. But at least for the last 2 seasons, that's been the practice I've observed and certainly participating in it as co-pilot that season.
Okay.
I'll open that for discussion.
Steve's got discussion.
Yeah, we have actually done it both ways, and it seems to work better. And I'll point out one of the problems. You do not pick up the slack to the point where the wing is raised. No clear delineation between taking up the slack or not a clear enough delineation between taking up the slack and actually being ready for departure. So you've got the wing up. And I've seen when really the departure has begun, people, even before the tail wag was taking place, people have gone with it and they departed, but actually that wasn't really the intention. And there was a confusion between the lifting of the wing and the departure. When you take up the slack and get ready with the wing down, it's very clear to the tow pilot that we're not ready to go yet.
Right. Yeah. Go again.
That's
And I will confirm exactly what Steve is saying. As co-pilot sitting in the cockpit, your rearward visibility is pretty limited. And so the one big thing you can tell is whether that wing is still on the ground or not.
Yeah.
So knowing that you're taking up the slack and the wing is on the ground allows you to know that's all on the wing. You're not moving beyond that point. In fact, it works well enough that the last weekend we flew, it turned out that we actually had a day where one flight where the slack was already out of the rope because of where the tow plane had stopped. We actually had to pull the glider forward 2 or 3 feet to hook it up. So there was no slack.
Yep.
The wing was down. Got the wing raised, thumb up. I think Joe raised the wing, and Clark was towing. He was like, how am I getting rudder wag and I haven't taken the slack out? So he was relying on that wing down to know he had taken slack out, and now when the wing came up, he was in the preparation for tow.
Yep.
So it does serve as a break point by doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a
We've
really
tried it both ways, and it seems to work the better way. And we have not had any bad incidents by doing it that way.
Okay.
I had another club safety officer from the club once tell me that they didn't want these, and these are great points too for the pilots, but from the wing runner point of view, he didn't want his wing runners holding on to the glider while there was the potential again for another jerk. So from a wing runner point of view, there's no reason he needs to be holding that wing up while the rope is being the slack being taken up. It only introduces the possibility of an accident or injury to the wing runner.
We got to come up with our own plan on that. there's no guidance in the FAA glider flying handbook. I don't think I've seen any in the other private authors that wrote things, and there's nothing that SSA gives us. And
Actually, they have a little, when I just read it before, last week before coming to the meeting, on this point, they have a little blurb that actually says some clubs take up slack before raising the wing. They actually had it, which made me feel a little more comfortable about our practice.
Yeah, I mean, that way that wing runner can be clear of the wing, you know, giving the signal to take up the slack, which hopefully you can still see in the tow plane, and let that get ready for preparation for flight. I like the way you guys described that.
Having flown in different places and or even in the same place with different procedures, I'm fine with any method. But it is good to have an agreement ahead of time. And I do have to say, if the wing is now leveled without the tow rope having been taken up, I'm always worried that the tow plane, that the tow pilot might forget that we haven't taken the slack out and just start going. So I'm always a little more nervous in that situation that I'm going to have to rapidly put up these. I think it can work both ways, but it is good to have a general agreement.
Yeah.
With a glass glider, it doesn't have as much protection on the wing surface. So sometimes, of course, the airplane does actually start the glider unintentionally. With our gliders, that's not an issue. We have nice wheels and springs and so on. So I think we do have to be more careful with a glass glider or something with less protection.
I think we should have a procedure that works with both, so that we don't have to train people on different methods.
Yeah.
I would say again, at least the entirety of last season, we were doing the taking up slack before raising the wing. So that kind of served as a natural break. I think it also gives the wing runner and the tow pilot then the opportunity to start looking and making sure the kill zone in front of the wings is empty.
Yeah.
And the final check for the airspace before you look at the wing to make sure there's nothing wrong.
Okay. A lot of things got to come together. Lee, again.
I could mention something about the thumbs up thing. Is this a good time for it?
Yeah, sure.
So this is sort of a common, I mean, so the pilot should give the thumbs up for the wing runner to lift the wing. So I've been in numerous situations where the person lifts the wing anyway. And, you know, even when I'm not ready, so sometimes I'll just say, no, put the knee down or over the reach or something like this. And maybe I'm almost ready, so I just go along with it, right? But then we had a safety meeting, this is up in Vermont, and one of the guys who did this all the time, he said, you know, these pilots, they're so lazy, they never put their thumbs up. In other words, he was assuming that I was negligent in putting my thumb up, when the fact was I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And so that's a really important thing, to make sure the pilot actually requests with the thumbs up that the wing be raised, no matter what the system is. I can't emphasize that enough, because this happens. I don't think it's happened here, but it's happened in various places. And it's so funny that this guy is thinking that I was the one raising it.
Well, there are some members that are just ground crew members. They're not pilots, they're not going to fly. They just like coming out and helping. So I might run into some of those people. And a lot of times we're training new wing runners too. And hey, I was a new wing runner at one time too. And I went out there, first thing I would do is raise the wing of the glider. The pilot would scold me and I put the wing back down. And you know, we're just coming into this again fresh. Some of us haven't run a wing in a year or more. Go out there and you raise the wing by mistake, put it back down, or take the scolding from the pilot, or take the scolding from the flight operator, or something like that, the flight line operator. Don't take it to heart. Okay, everyone just wants you to be safe. That's all.
Can I ask?
The competition is completely different, isn't it? The competition becomes completely ordinary.
We're not doing competition here.
Yeah.
Right? Let's save some of that discussion.
My point was that there's a great deal of variation here in the way things are being done.
Let's work on our variation of it as well. Well, you're right, it happens differently, but he's been in some competitions, right? They have a briefing. They're told the way it's gonna happen. It's up to you to remember. So, yeah.
I just wanted to ask you guys that I haven't experienced this raise the wing and take the slack up process. We talked about advantages of leaving the wing down, that it provides this break, you know, for the pilot and ground crew and tow plane. And also I'm citing the possibility of, you know, injury to the, what is the advantage of having the wing raised up while the rope is being taken up? I haven't heard that.
Okay, so if you raise the wing, you're probably not in front of it. I've seen people stand in front of the wing, let's take up the slack. Well, now you're in that kill zone, okay? Raising the wing, if you're holding on to it like this, and something happens and one wing takes off on you, you're probably not going to get hurt. I'm a big fan of raising the wing, means that when I raise this wing, both the pilot and I are sure that there's nobody in front. And as a tow plane operator, I see that wing go up, I go, okay, 2 people have assured me that there's nobody in the way. I'll start taking up the slack. That's what I like about the wing being up, because in the tow plane, you're seeing this mirror. There's just a lot of vibration going on. So the only thing you can ascertain is going up or down sometimes. Who has never been in the tow plane, sat in the tow plane? I would invite all of you to come out and sit in the tow plane, and I'll get in back and you can watch me in the mirror and you can tell me what I'm doing, okay? It's pretty hard. I'll go back to that 180 to 200 feet where I normally do. Well, let's put a glider out there. Let's get everybody a chance to sit in the tow plane so you know what the tow operator is seeing. Not a lot sometimes.
Can you not just use your radios to communicate with each other?
Sure, you can. And, you know, maybe we'll do both.
One other event that I would also point out is with our gliders, we frequently have a situation where the top of yarn comes wrapped around the post. So in the very last minute, the pilot's looking at that and going, oh, this needs to be corrected before we can go. If we raise the wing prior to the picking up the slack, we find ourselves in this place where we really have to lower the wing, you know, and then we end up going into that zone, because that's the point at which the pilot's looking at this, right before they go. And no matter what, we have to go do that, but it becomes very confusing about having the wing up before the pilot really making that very last.
Well, when the wing is up, nobody should walk in front of that at all. And if somebody does, as pilot in command, I pull the release.
We're being really, I know I am when I start correcting that thing, but I know what, I see the risk and I'm being careful, but I think we all know what's going on right there. And you're basically saying release it, go correct the yarn, bring the
Yep.
tow plane back around.
That's what I'm saying.
It back up.
That's what I'm saying. Yep. So I can tell you, as long as I've been flying gliders, it didn't make any difference if that string was wrapped around once or 4 times. Okay? You know what you can do when I fly next time? You can go up and yank it off. I don't need that yaw string to know if I'm in a coordinated turn or not. I can see it, I can feel it, but you know what? For training, next time what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that string around 2 or 3 times. The next time I do your flight review or whatever. And I'm going to prove to you it still works. All right? Taking that excuse to run out there and check the string and then run back and run the risk of someone getting hurt or causing those extra seconds of delay before you take off. Okay. It's, you know, it goes back to risk factors, okay? How much risk is it that I take off with the string wrapped around once or twice or not at all, okay? You just gotta know. I think that's overdoing it a little bit. If you want to overdo it, release the glider tow rope, let someone go out and straighten it out, back up. You're the pilot in command. You really don't want that string wrapped around once or twice, like I'm saying. At least the glider has something come out and fix it.
Actually, I want to emphasize that a little bit because last year season around in June, I was in that situation. Gas change was not straight, and after it lifting up, I was very stressful, and somehow in the towing I did not handle it very well. We have a tough. My point is, I was in a situation I have never expected. That makes me stressful and probably need to create some situation like that to make ourselves familiar, especially for the students.
Okay. So basically, let's talk about different situations, different scenarios, and how we play on those. Okay, that's good. There's plenty more, folks. I wasn't lying when I said 2 hours, was I? All right, takeoff emergencies. I know lunch is here, so we want to keep going. Fail to plan, or you can plan on failing. Okay, that's a SSA. Actually, no, I think that is a FAA poster. So, what do you think this is telling us? We need to come up with a plan before we get behind this tow plane about what we're going to do if there's a tow plane failure, PT3, whatever you want to call it, tow rope break. Below 200 feet. This is just a generality. This will be different at every airport you fly. Tow plane loses power or rope break, release. Maintain airspeed straight ahead, head right down the runway, stay under control. Land on the airport if possible. Okay, this is below 200 feet. We don't know how far down the runway we are. Okay, in a field across the river, if using runway 31, they cut all those trees down. It's a clear shot right across the river if you really need to do it. If you're going to land in the corn, that's all right. Notice this right here. Not a lot of options if you're using runway 13. If we're using runway 13, there's a lot of times I'll elect not to fly because you know what? Sometimes it's windy. I don't like my choices if I have a rope break or a failure going off of 13. I don't like the opportunities that are out there. Above 200 feet. Always turn upwind. Always turn upwind. How many times do I have to say that? Always turn upwind. This means that before you even got in the glider, maybe, hopefully, or while you're sitting on the runway, that you've already come up with a plan of which way you're going to turn if that rope breaks. You're going to turn into the wind. Return to the airport only if in range. You don't have to come back to the airport. Aircraft land off-field all the time, okay? It's not a big deal. We just need the right kind of field. Land straight ahead. Land straight ahead off airport in a field. Well, you can always find an airport straight ahead on 31 anyway. Have more than one landing option in mind. Have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Have a couple of different plans in mind. Make a radio call only if time allows. Okay? I stress this. Only if time allows. If you're in an emergency situation, what's the number one thing you're going to do?
Fly the aircraft.
Fly the aircraft. Okay? You're low. All right? You want to make sure you're going to survive and tell everybody about it. Okay? So don't feel you have to get on the radio right away and miss one of the perfect landing opportunities out there. Fred's smiling at me. I don't know why. Fred's a radio talker.
What phrase would you use on the radio for a rope break? Rope break, returning to runway?
I don't know. That's something you should plan ahead for, right? What am I going to say if the rope breaks? That's a good one. I never thought about that.
I guess the only person you'd really have to alert is the jump plane if they're lined up right behind you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if there's another aircraft lined up, it's going to take off right behind you. That's a good point. Okay.
Even then, the jump plane is going to be well above that.
I wouldn't count on it.
No, I've sometimes wondered if he's going to hit the river.
Full load.
Maybe look at it as a practice.
All right, so let's run through a couple of scenarios, okay? So here's runway 31 here, so we're taking off this way. This is the old picture. There's still, I'm still out there working on the Pawnee, and Lee's still out there setting up. The trees haven't been cut down yet. One thing that's new that I realized is there's this big solar farm out there in an area that used to be a really good landing situation area. So I didn't have time to redo it, so I just put a picture of the solar panels there.
And that's where it's located?
That's where it's located, yeah. Right there. Yeah.
I'm worried about the lower fields as well.
Down here?
Yeah. Last time we were at the beginning of this season, it's hard to tell if they've just plowed or if there's solar panels going in there as well.
Oh, really?
There's also power line running across, so it looks like they're going to. And
So-
actually, the last time we flew, it was underwater. It was actually common.
Yeah. So here are the power lines everyone's talking about, and that's good because I know right about here they connected to the power lines, the solar panels, okay? And these power lines right here are pretty easy to see. This one here that kind of takes off is not the same diameter of power line, and it's harder to see, but it is here. Especially if you were thinking, hey, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to land in these fields right here. Well, you better remember that there's a power line crossing right there. Okay. Here are some of the fields that we kind of mapped out as some areas that you may want to have as a plan A, B, C, and D. Well, certainly if you're taking off on the runway, you've got a good 500 to 700 feet right here of grass. And these trees are all gone right now too. So if you were high enough and you had to, you could definitely fly across the river and get one of these fields. There's also a field up here. I mean, it would have to be a pretty quick decision to turn and land up here, but this is uphill. So you're starting here at the lower end of the hill, and now you're driving uphill. And it's pretty bumpy. When you have an emergency, I'm of the mindset, my glider is now a giant shock absorber to save my life. I don't care about the glider, I care about me. If you're flying with me, you're probably pretty good because I'm worried about saving myself. I can save myself, whoever's riding with me in the front or back seat is probably going to live too. That's the way I think of emergencies. Let me go back. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what's happening in this field. I did see corn in it last year. This area is kind of scruffy over here. You'll hit some small trees that are probably less than the height of the ceiling in here. You're going to survive. Even if there's water here, you're going to survive, okay? Even if it's been plowed, you're going to survive. That's all you really care about during an emergency. There's another field down here. It's kind of hard to see low level, but if you need to, if you turn and follow the river, you're going to hit this field here. That's a pretty nice one.
How deep's the river, you know?
Deep enough where I can't stand up. I'm sure it varies at different times of the year. But it's an option. It may not be the best one, but you better be ready to hop out of the glider. And yeah, you better be ready for a water land. There's more fields up here on the other side of the solar panels. Although I think I might have this not quite in the right place. I think started here, it's migrated into some of these fields. It is? Yeah. But I do know that this field right here is open because I'm like, man, if I owned that house right there, I'd have myself a nice airport right there. So I know it's landable. Probably, going to be plowed up with corn or something. If you are returning to the field, what did I say? Always turn into the wind, right? So if this blue arrow represents the wind right here, it's kind of blowing down, and if I made a turn to the right, that wind's going to help keep me closer to the center line so I have a better shot at getting back. Here's what's happening if I don't turn into the wind. Look how my track is probably going to go now. I'm going to get blown farther away from the airport, and it's going to be tougher to get back. If I did make that mistake, I'd probably realize it right about here, and I would probably get my spoilers in and try and land here, or maybe I'd have enough time to make a 180-degree turn and come back this way. There's not a lot of other choices other than going in the river here. Okay, 1-3, not my favorite runway. I don't mind saying it either. here are available landing sites going off of 1-3. This area here between the end of the runway and the road, I bet you there's close to 1,000 feet right here. Okay, so if you have a rope break early, you may want to get on the spoilers. I hope you're good at slips and just get that descent going, and you could probably land before you get to the road. There's some pretty tall power lines right here on this road, I'll let you know. On the other side here is a cemetery. Probably a survivable landing area, but you're going to stop awful darn fast with those tombstones sticking up. An area that would look real appealing right away is the high school, but I've got this little star here. There are some very tall light pole stands here, very tall. So you better be ready to thread a needle to get between them. You could probably do it. The other field that's kind of appealing is over here, and they're actually cutting some of these trees down. They're making another athletic field over here. But again, very tall light poles. This is a river here. It looks more like a lake from the air. My brother lives right about there, and most of the time you can walk across that. It's not very deep. Okay? But you should know that there are some power line crossings on this lake right here and right there. And you can see usually the sneakers and all of the fishing tackle wound up in the lines. It's easier to see that sometimes in some years than you can the power lines. But down in this area here, it's very, very swampy, and you could probably land on a grass island or land in the water and be close to getting up on shore pretty quickly. There's a field here. You got to be kind of high up to see it, and if you are heading for that, you need to know that there's some power lines that cross right at the edge of that field right there. Okay. Other than that, you know, if you've got a real low break, you might be able to get here. You might be able to turn around and come back again, but there's not a lot of options going off of 1-3, and it's usually a little windy. And all it takes is, you know, a good gust, a good tug on that rope to break it. Or to pull it out of the interior of the rope or something. I don't like flying off of 1-3. May not fly on it. That's one of my risk factors. Going off 3-1, yeah, I'll fly in higher winds. Going off 1-3, no, I'm not going to fly in the same winds I might fly off of 1-3. Okay.
Also, there are power lines along the road.
Along this road?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wherever you see a yellow line, you can almost count that there's going to be power lines. My brother lives right there. Like I say, he's the only house with a dock. And if you land there, just walk up the garage door, other door there, you go into his garage. He's got a big fridge there. It's always full of beer.
Oh, I'd be ready for it.
Can I interject on the occasions when we're using 1-3? Often the wind is southeast. And I remember one particular day where the wind was coming over the point of trees to the right. I think you can see, yeah, right in there. And it came over and we got a slack rope, a significant slack rope. We were about 100, 125 feet. So all you can do is your slack rope recovery, or make sure you are always should be ready. But the last thing you want to do is put a sudden jerk on the rope at 100 feet right there. So if the wind is southeast, you can expect turbulent flow over those trees.
Southeast, which is the direction?
Well, this would be southeast down here. Okay, so the wind would be blowing this way, is what David says, from here to there. This is a little bit better picture. It's kind of easier to see. You'll see the cut in the trees for this power line right here for that field. You'll see there's like a little peninsula here. I always look for this building right here, sort of like a silver building with a silver tin roof, and just you can kind of watch the wires come out of this area right down the cut in the trees here. They go across the street here. These are kind of hard to see. They're not as large diameter power lines. There's a dam here, and this from this point here to this point here is probably 15, 20 foot drop. My choice of landing would be at this end of the pond or the river if you needed to. But you can see not a lot of good choices out here.
It might be, I'll say this too, that David pointed out the wind from the southeast. I think, Lee, you might also agree, generally, at least in the last 20 years I've been flying at Danielson, when you're flying 1-3, it's unusual that you're going to have a good soaring day. It's generally not a good soaring day. So it's a training day, okay? But if it helps make your decision at all, I personally don't like flying on a day when it's 1-3 because it's not going to be a good soaring day. So that's my only personal decision, but as well as the fact that, yeah, but if you need something to help you make that decision to not fly 1-3, it would
Just
include
a decision model when you're going off the 1-3 anytime.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about tow pilot signals. Everybody familiar with these? Not start refreshing yourself on them. Bill Kelly's good at doing this. SSA has the wing runner course and it has the tow pilot course. And I'd recommend taking both of them. If anyone needs this, I can put this back up again. I haven't checked this link in a long time. I'm only assuming it's right, but if you go to soaringsafety.org, that will get you there. If you're going to write anything down, soaringsafety.org would be the way to get to this site. You actually take the course, it runs you through a little quiz, and if you pass the quiz, it doesn't keep track of how many times you take the quiz. You can take it 30 times like I had to before we passed, and then you can print out a certificate. So recovery operations, this is another area that's going to have a lot of discussion. I'll tell you what, let me go through these slides, then let's back up and we'll look at them. I think there's only 2 or 3 slides here. But one thing to point out, yeah, a lot of these trees are gone, but they still mow this grass. And this area here started growing up with a lot of scrubby trees. But I took a picture here because look how close the glider is to the mowed field line here, and how much distance we have between these people and the edge of the runway. There's barely enough room to get another aircraft through here. So it's sort of like it's good and bad about being able to land in the grass right now. In the past, what we did is we took off on the asphalt, and we would tow off the asphalt into the grass, and we would tow back. But this was always our emergency landing zone, okay? So as a golf cart operator, if you're zooming down, don't run right down the middle, which is what I see most people do. Run down the side if you can, or if you're going to run down the middle, use that 50-50 rule. Look forward 50% of the time, looking back. Have a radio, know what's going on, have situational awareness of what's coming in to this runway. Maybe it's nobody, maybe it's someone coming in on the asphalt, but don't turn your back to landing traffic. Here is the yellow recovery zone that we kind of set up. We're usually traveling back and forth here with the golf cart and across going over here to the FBO. This is the area that the golf cart is traveling in the most. Okay? And especially along here, you should not be turning your back to landing traffic. You should be keeping a watchful eye. And if there is landing traffic, what you want to do is you want to turn and get in the grass as far as you can. Get off of here. Or better yet, don't even leave here until the aircraft has come in and landed. Okay? There's nothing that says that you have to be here ready to recover the glider when it stops. Okay? Whoever the pilot is should be able to get themselves off the runway if they need to. Okay, so I know a lot of people want to talk about this subject, so I'll stop right here. Steve, did you have something you were going to say about it? Somebody had something they wanted to say about it.
Well,
Joe.
I think we've made things a little more complex because now this turf runway is open for use. You know, prior use, but for use of other aircraft. So it really really becomes imperative that golf cart operators really paying attention head on the swivel. And I think we could make it now mandatory that cart has a radio in it, so we can hear what's happening. Because occasionally we'll have a glider land, the glider will be on the asphalt, and there'll be a glider coming in behind him that we hadn't anticipated, which would be using the curb.
Right.
So, no fault to the golf cart operator, he's just down there fighting to retrieve one glider, has two to keep track of.
Right. Now you're making that poor pilot make a decision. Do I land on the asphalt and rear end the other glider? Or do I land in the grass and decapitate the poor golf cart operator?
Right. So,
Okay? Or do I do something else? Do I go and land in the grass?
taxiway on the other side.
Taxiway, or you just cause another problem for this poor pilot coming into land who can't go around.
So I think at the very least, we need to have a radio in the golf cart.
Yeah, and whoever's in that golf cart with the radio, they need to be listening to it too. So,
Do we want to consider a policy of not pre-staging the golf cart?
I think that's, the situation is going to dictate whether we do or not.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Not pre-staging the golf cart. Don't go out to fetch until the glider's down on the ground. Yeah, it's 2 minutes. Yeah.
And I would say, you won't see it hurt that day.
I think the situation is going to depend on what we do.
Yeah.
And it also is possible to pre-stage the tow and the tug, the golf cart, off of the grass in the weeds, basically. So whenever I see something like that potentially beginning, I'll actually back up to the point that is off of any area where you can land.
So I think what you're saying, Steve, is you come down here and you, remember these trees aren't here anymore, you kind of back off into the grass or
Yeah, I'll go down a little lip and into the high grass and wait there.
There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're looking in back of you as you're traversing down.
And you also have to be careful with the golf cart is not really hot, the engine's hot, because you could start a truck fire.
Yeah.
So I make sure I don't park on the
Well, I guess we're not going to do that.
If there's a good spot down there, we could mow a three-stage area.
There are a couple spots where it's most, that's
That
why I
might be
wanted to try.
an idea.
I sit in the high grass, I'll sit in
It wouldn't take more than 10 minutes to mow a big enough spot. for
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Then you got a common spot to always use. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, then you as a golf cart operator need to go, oh, somebody didn't mow it. How hot is this?
Yeah.
Maybe I won't go down there. What I'm saying is everyone's going to have to keep thinking all the time. Run that paved model and just say, you know, maybe the environment's not good for me to go down there and stage the golf cart today. Joe, you were going to say something?
No,
Okay. Well, we went through that a lot faster than I thought we were going. Glider tie downs. This is a picture I took a couple of years ago. I go down to the airport frequently, middle of the week sometimes, and came down here, I found the glider like this. And I was like, oh man, I got a fabric repair I'm going to have to do underneath here now. This is a sawhorse that we put the glider tail up on. For you guys may not know about it. The sawhorse is turned sideways. The sawhorse has a ring that the tow rope, so the tie down rope goes through that ring and then it ties onto the glider. So the glider tail stays with this sawhorse all the time. So no damage was done. I mean, we barely, there might be a little nick there, but it didn't do any damage. So I was able to set things back up again. And when I set this sawhorse back up onto the tail of the glider, this is what I found. This rope was kind of loose. Like, okay. Normally, this part of the sawhorse is right over the hole of this tire that's there. And when I looked at it from the side, I saw, well, this is how the glider was tied down. You can see all these ropes point towards the back, which meant that this glider could move backwards very freely, and it loosened itself up. What we should do is we should strive to have the tail rope pulling the glider backwards and where it ties down on the wings, trying to pull it forward. That way it can't go backwards or forward, and it also steadies the wings from being able to rock so much too. And that would have kept it on the sawhorse. Okay.
That's what the manual, 233 manual shows.
That's right. How many people have read the Schweitzer 233 manual or the pilot operating handbook? Yeah, that's what it says. In fact, it's on the very last page. So easy to find.
That is dictated by the little green drain thing we back it into. So that has to be, if that were positioned properly, it would be kind of a no-brainer. It'd automatically be tying in with those stresses on the ropes. But if that main wheel is not going to stop in the right place, that won't work. So we have to.
David, what David's talking about is we have a downspout. Does anybody know the proper name of that? It fits a glider wheel perfectly. And we back the glider main wheel into that drain spout basin, I guess you call it. Diverter. And when the wheel is there, the ropes are in the proper position. So it's just a little bit of training on how to tie an airplane down. Is make sure you got a positive pull to the back and a positive pull going forward like this. I looked over. This is how I found the 126. And again, this tail should have been further back, and you can see that these ropes, not a very good picture, but I could push this glider backwards and all the ropes would loosen up. Skydive Danielson. How many people have jumped out of an airplane? All right. 3 or 4 of us, right? This is just a little briefing on what the jump pilots are doing at Danielson. This little oval right here is where the jump plane is going to be, anywhere from 3,000 feet to 14,000 feet when they let the jumpers out. And it kind of depends on which way the wind is blowing. So if the wind was blowing like this, they'd be letting the jumpers out closer to up here. And the jumpers are landing in this field right here. So if we're using 1-3, look where our traffic pattern would come in. Come in a left downwind here, left face, left flank. So we'd be flying right over the top. Of course, in this kind of wind direction, we wouldn't be doing it. But if we're using 1-3, another reason I don't like using 1-3 is I got to fly right over the jump zone. And the jump plane is probably going to let the jumpers out closer to here. And they're going to land here, which means they're crossing my downwind path.
Now, when I'm doing downwind for 1-3, I'm always north of the cleared area.
That's up here?
Substantially.
Oh, substantially?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm up there. Does that mean my pattern's wrong?
If we have a wind out of the northwest, they will walk and they'll come in across 3-1, landing into the wind. So the parachutists themselves.
Yep. The jumpers are told not to cross the center line if they can. They can, all right? They have things that happen. They have training people too, or student jumpers or something. So we all got to watch out for each other. And it's pretty easy to see the jumpers in the air because they're usually under canopy. When do they pull by? Anybody know? They're pulling like around 2,500 feet, 2,000 feet. Okay. So well above traffic pattern altitude if you're using the correct traffic pattern altitude.
But no, just in terms of being on the lookout for them, just because the wind is out of the northwest doesn't mean that they may still be, you may see them on your downwind 3-1.
Yep.
Or as you're actually rolling out and
The jumpers are more inclined to think it's their airport than us to think it's our airport. So everybody see and avoid. Be ready for something to happen. Have that plan A, B, and C again. All right. Maybe you need to make a circle until they get out of the way. Talk on the radio is secondary, but you may want to say, I'm making a 360 for jumper avoidance or something.
Is there a reason why 1-3 hasn't been using it right now?
let's not get into that discussion. I guarantee you that'll take up a lot of time. But you're right, it's a valid question, but let's not go into it. Parachute operations, the jump pilot's gonna make 3 radio calls. So if you've got a radio, whether you're on the ground, in the air, getting ready to take off, they're gonna make 3 calls. They make a call 10 minutes before they drop jumpers, 5 minutes before they drop the jumpers, and then again when jumpers are away, okay, meaning the jumpers have jumped out, they're in the air. They'll tell you from what altitude too, so you should have a pretty good idea what's going to happen, where you're going to see the jumpers. Try and keep away from the parachute landing zone if possible, particularly when using 1-3. We talked about that already. Okay. This year, the jump operation is using only 1 aircraft. They've got their caravan back again, so they'll be letting out up to 10 jumpers at a time. We just want to be good neighbors. We have got an excellent relationship with the jump operation, which is unusual when we have a jump operation on the field with anything else going on in the field. Rob and Laura are very professional people. They have not had any complaints about us at all. They may have said something just as a suggestion, maybe once or twice. I really can't remember what it was because it wasn't very big. If we can delay getting on the runway, if possible, let's try and let the jump plane go out ahead of us if we can. They're usually making a radio call when they're getting ready to leave their little staging area where they're loading people up. If we're good flight ops people, we can see the jumpers. We can see them all getting in. We can see the airplanes already running. We know they're going to be coming out pretty soon. So listen on the radio, try and anticipate them taxiing out if possible. I've talked to Rob about this several times. He said, look, you're on the runway. We didn't call and say we're coming out. We're going to wait till you're ready to go. We're going to watch you take off. And I say, hey, let's take off and get far away first before the jump plane takes off. He said, fine. Now, Rob's got a lot of different pilots. Some of them are pretty vocal on the radio, where they have been. If you hear any banter from the jump plane about, hey, you know, you need to get this glider out of here, whatever, just say, hey, we're doing the best we can. Let someone like me know. We'll go talk to Rob. Let Rob handle that pilot. Because he's told him the same thing. Okay? The glider guys are trying to be neighborly with us, letting us go out first, but you know, if not, you just need to hold and wait for us. So he's kind of having that same talk with his jump pilots that we're having right now too. Listening on the radio is the best thing. Hey, they're listening on the radio too. So you're making the call when we're going out to stage the glider with anticipating, you know, takeoff in 3 to 4 minutes or whatever. Listening on the radio for the jump plane. The jump plane doesn't fly the standard airplane traffic pattern. A little bit wider, and they're most of the time in a descent, but they're looking and they're making radio calls, so we should make radio calls what we're doing too when we hear them coming into the traffic pattern. That's it. See, it only took 2.5 hours. I don't know how many slides I got. I'm going to take a guess, 35?
Hey, you want me to stop recording now?
Yeah, you can stop writing all those notes. But send us all a copy.
I'll put it up on, it's probably too big. I'll put it up on a drive.
Thank you very much.
Just don't